All right, so we talked a little bit about the client server. Now let's talk about data warehouses and data marts. So data warehouses is where we're actually keeping all of that data that we've been talking about with the server. It's integrated data from across the entire business. It's historical, so it has the current information, but also has everything that your company has stored over time. Why is the historical part important? Because your operational system tends to be short term. I keep going back to these NCIS examples. Apparently, I've been watching too much NCIS. But you think like they talk about like you go to a scene and they go, oh yeah, like our camera only holds a memory for like 3 days or like a week, right? So the camera only stores a very short amount of time, like these video cameras for like store or whatever. Versus like if you're looking at like if that camera information was sent to a warehouse, that's where you'd have all the old data. What's the difference between that as an impact is that the operational system you can do it's designed for fast transactions, like you're not bogged down by the massive amounts of information, and you just like schlepp that over to the data warehouse where you're going to be focused more on running like these big enterprise wide and long-term type analyses that you wouldn't want to do on your operational systems. Like you're not going to do analyses on Safeway sales at a cashier station, right? You're going to be doing that on the big bad data warehouses, back wherever those are stored. Some of the other benefits, not in a total inclusive list. So you can integrate the data from across the enterprise. So you have, for example, you really can't do performance management without having information such as like sales data or whatever the data is that you're using as metrics for HR. Like how are you going to bring those pieces together? Well, either you're taking Excel sheets from everywhere and doing it manually, or you're bringing it together in a data warehouse where it can be just like there and integrated for you. It improves the data quality by improving the consistency of your data. So whether that's thinking about the way data is stored or even things like shared definitions. For example, my company, there's a definition for a department, but not division, even though they use that term all the time. What they really mean is all the people that report to this one person. That is the level higher than the department. Like that is the functional definition of it, but it's not a real definition. And if you look at different like reports or like job aids and stuff like that across time and from different sources across the company, they define it differently. So that makes things very, very confusing because they don't have consistency across the organization, because they're not storing this in a data warehouse and not being forced to reconcile these things. So by integrating together, you're forced to reconcile your data and you have improved consistency. You have a single data model for all of your data, which helps with these analyses because you're converting it all to the same type of thing. So that makes it a really powerful tool for doing business intelligence work and stuff like that. A data mart you can think of as like a little baby warehouse that is specific for a single line of business. So HR might have their own, your sales might have your own, research department might have their own, etc. Why would you want to have this little baby one when you have the whole big one? A couple of reasons. So one is that it's going to be a little bit faster to access. So if you have a setup like you have on the picture here, where you have like the big warehouse with all the things, the data marts are, they're very, very specialized. They might not even have the full data. They might have just like summarized and aggregate data instead. And that way, it's not as bogged down with stuff. There's when you're doing searches, there's less information there for it to do the searches on, which will speed up whatever you need. So you might only have the frequently used data there. Let's say that, you know, like normally, like you might need sales data going way back, but you don't need the specific sales data. You only need like totals. Like you only need like the daily sales totals. You don't need every single transaction, right? So you can just do that kind of aggregate with that level of granularity, store that in the data mart, and then when you need it, you can just access that really fast. You can also actually build these independently without having the data warehouse. Like ideally, you might have the warehouse and then build the data marts from that. But you can take a data mart and just build a nice cheap thing there. It's much faster and cheaper, especially for a smaller company that doesn't have the resources for implementing a huge warehouse. The problem with these, with doing it that way, is if you need to do a backwards integration from having data marts into building a holistic warehouse, it can kind of be awful to do that, because now you have to like integrate everything together, whereas before you could have like built it from the ground up and had it consistently designed to be the data marts. So yeah, so that's the difference between them and why they're important. And when you're thinking about, like, say you're working with a smaller company that's thinking about scalability, those are some of the pieces that you might be thinking about for how you want to proceed